Good evening. This is the Public Art Select Committee meeting for Wednesday, March the 6th. My name is John French, Chair and Councillor, and welcome to the Squamish Nation Traditional Territory. Our first item is to adopt the agenda, and the recommendation from staff is that the Public Art Select Committee agenda for March 6, 2019 be adopted. I saw that moved by Catherine, seconded by Meg. I called the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. It passes. So the first item is committee minutes, and you have before you the Public Art Select Committee minutes from February the 6th. Are there any comments? Do we need any edits? Is there any feedback from those minutes? No. Staff recommendation is that those minutes be approved as presented. It's yeah, she's moving. Oh. Moved by Meg, seconded by Angela. All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries. There is no business arising out of those minutes. And so that takes us to the business portion of our meeting. And the first item is Stan Clarke Park Mosaic Restoration Plan. And I'm very happy to have Elaine Naisby joining us today to talk to us about that project. So Elaine, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor French. My name is Elaine Naisby, and I'm a planner with the Community Planning Department. And I was involved in the design of Stan Clarke Park. So I thought it would be helpful for the committee just to go over the overall design before we talk about the mosaic. So yeah, basically Stan Clarke Park was redeveloped 7 years ago. So the design began in 2010, yep, already. And it was built in 2012. Some of the big design intents with the redevelopment was to connect Cleveland Avenue to 2nd. At that time, there wasn't a connection. It was largely grass. So the desire for a very generous, hard paved surface that would allow for community events, market stalls, and general use of the park. Also the playground, it used to be located in proximity to the mosaic, but that was moved south into what was a more underutilized grass area, and so the playground was basically a new playground. Some of the previous equipment was integrated into that design, like we're all familiar, so paths, plantings, the nature play area. There was a small cenotaph right on Cleveland Avenue that basically it was more formalized and celebrated in a bigger community space, and that's where we have our cenotaph with seating. Also planting beds, so the planting celebrates the seasons, the wind with the grasses, and so generally a place to meet and play. The reading circles were a key feature, so that the idea with the proximity to the library, so that library groups could come out, or sort of toddler music programs, all sorts of different community groups could use those circular spaces. So the cenotaph. So there are the cenotaph. There's also 23 birch trees that are planted around the perimeter of Stan Clarke Park, and those honor 23 fallen soldiers in Squamish. That's the number in World War conflicts. And so the materials used there and elsewhere, the stone, the wood for Squamish, and so there we have it, lighting at night. So there we see that pathway, and so always there was an awareness and concern that increased foot traffic on the mosaic might be an issue. There wasn't an awareness of the snow clearing equipment and such that we've been doing more and more. So these are images of the mosaic on the top left there. It's a little bit difficult to see, but that was the original mosaic. So initially there wasn't paving inside of it. It was actually bordered with grass. Those other images we see were when a concrete plaza was poured into that mosaic. There was seating, and here's where we were with the mosaic prior to needing to remove that section that crosses that walkway. So yeah, in May last year, that middle section, that middle portion was removed with care. And you can see there's images, and we have quite a few, of the mosaic that was removed. It was largely, you know, in their square mosaic pieces, but you know, due to having to remove that concrete, it's definitely not intact. So from a design point of view, in terms of putting it back into the park, staff feels that it would be really good to put it somewhere in the Cleveland streetscape side to connect the entrances, so 2nd Avenue and Cleveland, to add a bit more personality and community character to that Cleveland end. So option 1 probably is not feasible because the mosaic is in sort of flat square pieces. It would be amazingly fantastic if it could go on the vertical surfaces at the base of the cenotaph, obviously requiring consultation with the Legion. But from a feasibility point of view, I'm not a mosaicist, and I don't think that it's possible to sort of clad that concrete with it unless there was a decision to sort of repurpose the mosaic pieces. So short of that, I think that it would make sense to put it back as a horizontal surface on the streetscape along Cleveland. And so being cautious of desire lines in places where people tend to walk, but there's definitely areas along the frontage, more in that image to the right, probably adjacent to one of those basalt columns where I think it could be potentially reinstated. And again, I'm not a mosaicist, so I definitely would be looking for some input on that. Another option would be that if it can't be sort of put back together, to use it almost like sort of a stepping stone feature somewhere in the park or in different areas. There are some considerations from an operational perspective with that, in that it might be difficult to maintain. I don't know how we would ensure that it wouldn't be, people wouldn't walk off with sections. If we were to put it back on the Cleveland side, I think we could, you know, pour a concrete foundation and adhere it to that. So, for discussion. Thank you.
Is the original artist a part of the consultation?
It was a community project.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's it was done by
A group of people.
a large
Collective.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked
the
about
artist
this.
in residence who was actually organizing that was Heather Royal, and she no longer lives in Squamish. But I was actually part of that council liaison kind of thing, so I'm perhaps the most familiar
Yes.
at this table with that particular project. Not a mosaicist though.
On a mosaic.
Yes, exactly.
So
There was a lot of youth involvement. Is that
There was,
correct?
yeah. It was a youth-driven project. It was the youth center actually had just maybe a year or 2 years had been established, and they wanted to do a project. And so this was a project to get some at-risk youth and some other kids, a summer project to contact business people, to contact council, staff, everybody, to actually design 1-foot square tiles, you know, and then incorporate that into the mosaic. And the nonprofit organizations were the blue band, which is the wider band. So from the Women's Center to the climbing to all that, all the nonprofit organizations in town were invited to participate as well.
Good. I know you have a lot of thoughts, and you're up first.
am I okay?
I want to be clear though, what's our objective out of this discussion? Are we, as the committee, recommending something that you take back to staff, council? What are you looking for from us specifically?
It's a good question.
What staff are looking for, there had been an appetite previously from the committee to repurpose those salvage sections. And so Elaine is being modest as the talented park designer behind Stan Clarke Park. We felt it was best that she provide input and a recommendation based on the symbolism and architecture around the park. So that is up for the committee to, one, you can decide to do nothing with them. Two, you can make a determination based on one of those recommendations.
And which would be best conveyed by a motion?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Hold on, Meg. As the authority in this room, please share your thoughts.
In this room, so I've been in Mosaic for about 20 years. Not full time, clearly, but just listening to your presentation, the idea of having them horizontal, or sorry, vertical to the ground, I don't know what the state of the mosaics are, but it just gives gravity another opportunity to pull the pieces off. So it would depend upon the conditions and any what's the word, remediation, any work that needs to be done on it to bring it back up to speed, restoration, any of the pieces. So it depends on how many pieces, and also what is preferred, whether we are looking at just saving square pieces that represent an image that is recognizable and that people can relate to, or are we trying to save all the pieces to create some kind of sort of secondary artwork or design. So those are some of the options. It's nice to see them. Like, I hadn't seen a picture until now of the stacked pieces after they were taken out. And I want to say kudos to the people who did their best to get them out looking like that.
Yeah.
And if there's ever an enormous mosaic, if there's ever an enormous mosaic put in again by the community, by the district, or the community, for the community, I'd recommend doing pieces, sections, and not one large thing, because that's where the problem was, I think. Do you have any questions? Maybe I'm better if you...
So does that mean that you're leaning towards option number 2? Do you have any comments on the second option?
In terms of having having them spaced out, not flat. Is that what you mean?
Correct. So Elaine.
Yeah, that was my that just makes more sense to me in terms of being kinder on the pieces and also just so that people can access them still more easily. I think Meg wants to say something.
Hold on, Meg. Are you going to clarify vertical, horizontal?
Just clarify, when you said spread them out, do you mean not to try to sort of piece it back together?
I don't mind one way or the other if
okay.
it looks good. I mean, I wouldn't be the final authority on that one without all of us taking a look at what it looks like and how people can enjoy it, right? That's my opinion.
Meg.
One of the things that I was concerned about is there were a number of comments, people saying, why are you taking this out and what's actually going on with this? The current mosaic that's there actually has a plaque that tells a little bit about who put it in, when it was put in, that kind of stuff. I thought it would be appropriate if we had a companion plaque.
And we will get to
that. Said,
we need to finish this project.
Yeah, let me just finish that thought.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if actually having that plaque which describes why it was done and what was done, and to honor what we took out, using some of those pieces to do it. I would say close to the mosaic, because that's where there's an obvious gap in it. Just to credit and what actually went on and why did it go on and what did this happen? Why is there this, because we had to do it and it makes sense, and we're honoring, the people and that contributed money and time and effort and that kind of stuff, even though we had to remove some of those pieces.
Duly noted, but I want to stick to task at hand.
Okay, so task at hand, I would like to see them closer together. I would like to see them flat. I would like to see them part of that credit piece with that plaque.
Okay, so that sounds like option 2 to
I
me.
have no idea how it fits in with your options.
Like all Meg all together, or
I think it's an option, it's a separate
I would
option.
say
Randomly
it
placed.
was being it all together.
separate.
I would, you know,
Okay.
like even putting them
that's option,
in a piece of concrete that's,
that's option 2.
It's a little different because option 2 was to actually put it on Cleveland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So sort of the other
So
side of
that's
the
right.
path.
I wanted some clarification.
The only thing I would say about that, sorry to jump in, is I was always a little worried about the type of tile and the slickness on the tile of wet weather. Because if I was laying a sidewalk, I would want it to be stone. And these are generally glazed tiles and they get slick.
Yeah, no, so the intention was for for it to not be in an area where
walking
people
area.
walk.
Okay. Cool.
I don't have it's almost laser.
No, yeah, it would run parallel to the existing sidewalk and almost act as a border.
Okay.
oh, see.
Well, that might pull people into the park.
Jackie,
So just some points of clarification. You've only taken out the middle piece section,
Yeah.
and so we're trying to relocate that, not recreate the entire mosaic somewhere
No.
else. Just wanted to get that clear.
Correct.
Um,
We want to take the awesome pieces that were
Right in the
able
center?
to be
Salvaged.
salvaged and repurpose those
Elsewhere.
elsewhere.
It would provide some connectivity to have pieces on either side of the park, but you need something to connect them. Either a plaque or something to connect the story. Even if maybe you put them on the pathway that connects the middle piece, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you mean the actual path that connects the two as opposed to the.
It was in one of the maps.
There is, just food for thought, there is not that many pieces to
Oh,
create.
okay, and that was my next point, is
create that
how many pieces
impact.
are there?
There's about 6 to 8.
Ah, okay, good to know.
And they're the 1 foot square pieces.
And they're 1 foot square?
The original ones were
The-
1 foot square.
Yeah, but that's something. Yeah.
There they are, okay.
But there's a lot more than are in these pictures, actually.
Are some of them damaged or not?
Some
Yeah.
are, like you can
Yeah.
see in that top right,
Yeah.
or the right-hand side, you can only see part of that circle.
That's the.
rotary.
That's a rotary, yeah.
Yeah,
That was
a lot,
the center.
but a lot of the others still have like roughly a square
Okay.
shape. It's a bit jagged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they can always be repurposed in a very artful way.
Totally.
Um,
And if the public art committee decides that,
So you
that
see the
that part of that
walkway,
is the story, then that part of the story.
yeah, the walkway that's headed over to Cleveland, from the top of that, they can go on either side of that to connect, as you were suggesting, Meg, that they are closer to the original piece.
Well, I've got Sydney next, and then Angela.
We might get to this later in the discussion, but just a question around budget. So if we were to pick option 2, wherever that might be, being that option 2 is we want it to be somewhere in the park restored, so to say, is there going to be a anticipated cost on what that might be to this committee?
Out of our budget, okay.
Yeah, there's some monies left in the operations budget from last year that can go towards this, but because we haven't priced it out yet, but we'll come back to the committee. But
Oh, okay, thought you were looking for an answer on that.
Angela?
I'm seeing a potential opportunity here. So we have a bunch of broken pieces, and we have some intact. How old is this? The mosaic itself?
98.
yeah, we were calling it 20 years.
With the new vitalization of this park, is there any opportunity to revisit an updated sort of connection? Have another mosaic project be a connection to this one? So I'm not saying that has to happen now, but I'm just saying maybe that's something we could table as part of the reconnection process. We could re-invite the community members, the youth groups and so on that made these mosaics originally 30 years ago to revisit this project, so it helps to connect to the past, but also
The future.
the present
Okay.
and potentially look at the future, like especially with the newness of the park.
If we wanted to take that on as the committee, we could do that.
Could I speak to that? for a
Yes,
moment?
please do.
I think that we should remember as well the young people that are doing the statues kind of thing, the four of them, and maybe explore if there's an opportunity to do something instead of having them scattered, and maybe they'll be scattered, but is there an opportunity to do those in the park in conjunction with the mosaic pieces? I don't know.
So just keeping
And I know we're getting
us
way
on task,
Yes,
what
yes.
I'd like to do is table that idea for next month's meeting.
Sure.
Yeah?
And can I just add a piece of information?
Let me just check in. We're good? We can leave it at that?
Oh yeah, totally bring it up. I just thought that might be a nice one.
Okay, Peter, and then Catherine, you next.
I just want to sort of summarise my thoughts, and so that would be my say. It's really hard to say we should do A or B where we don't have a budget. I think it's hard as well that people are stretched with time and a project which your department might have to take on them within internally. That might be something, because if your department's not very busy and there's not a lot going on, they'll be like, oh great, yeah, go and do this thing. So I don't really like that, and I like the idea of something which has more meaning and impact. The other one, when you don't have the information on what slate there is, how many square feet it is, so to your point on budget and to your point on an art project, I feel personally that's possibly a waste. Not a waste of resource, but it's like you're going down a road which thing. Now, my one point or question was that centerpiece, was it one group that was affected, or was it just part of the whole thing? What percentage of that mosaic got taken out? Because if it's one person, one group, that's a little bit different to it's just a piece taken out.
No, there was multiple groups.
So my question would have been, is like, if you look at it a different way, that if this was designed a little bit differently in the first place and that wasn't ever there, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So it's just unfortunate that when you have a piece of anything, you have building, you have a structure, you have things, you get wear and tear on it, and sometimes it dies. Now, if the whole thing had been destroyed, no, we're having a different conversation. So my concern with these is A or B. I would much prefer your C option or your D option, where the energy of something like this gets used in a really constructive way. And what I see here is broken pieces, and you're trying to create a story from that, which is like, let's recreate something, not let's try and fix it. And if it's very something like Meg's example is very simple, because that sounds really low cost and very easy to do, where it's literally, here's one piece of the mosaic and here's a storyboard, here's a plaque, done. So it's low cost, we get the same impact. Or B would be what you suggested, which is another projects. That's my thoughts. Right on the table here, 1 and 2 don't really work for me.
Okay.
B and C might, unless my last point actually, unless you think this is like one of the most amazing pieces of mosaic we've seen in a long time, and has a cultural and artistic significance that I don't understand.
It has a cultural importance. I mean, looking at it, I would say that the remaining pieces could make up an interesting small garden area, or a border for a plant bed or a flower bed of some kind. But they're not narrow; they're square. They're about that big. That was what I was going to say. But what I wanted to, I was going to say this for the roundtable, but I just wanted to let you know that today, literally today, I've been hired by Mamcorn Elementary School to do a mosaic with the children. That's going to be for 20 pieces. And awesome. Learning from this, they will all be separate concrete slabs. And
the only thing I can say is the reason why we have the sidewalk and 4-foot and reinforced was because then you didn't get heaving and all that kind of stuff underneath the mosaic. So there's pros and cons of both of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just when you're doing large mosaics, usually mosaicists will put it in a section, not perfectly square. They'll do it sort of odd shapes so that it doesn't look like it's a jigsaw puzzle, and that they fit in together that way. And also just so that they can make them off-site and bring them in more easily. But those pieces could be. I mean, I'm open-minded to how they could be used artistically. I would like to see them used. I'm pretty open-minded in terms of let's see what the possibilities are and then see how much we've got to work with and then decide as a group.
So then what I would say is that we're looking for more direction from this group, because we have been looking at this a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
And we have come up with what we think is the best operationally and easily low budget install. And so if the committee's feedback is something different, then please provide us more direction.
Peter?
I'll just say the one thing then, that was my piece before, but if your department thinks, no, that this is really feasible, it's really low budget, it's really easy to do, then if there's a recommendation, that's great. If what Meg and Angela said on reflection is like, oh, actually that could be easier, and then storage is not a problem, then maybe it's like, okay, hold it. And my vote is this might be really harsh, and I apologise because I wasn't in previous meetings, especially coming from somewhere where archaeology is a big part of history where I'm from. It's like, I think you've still got really beautiful mosaic and something there, you've got a piece of history and you've still got everything there to me, and sometimes things die. And it's like, I'm not saying that is my suggestion, but if it didn't, I wouldn't vote against it. If there was a third option that, totally. Backtrack. So that's just my personal view. I think it's amazing and things like that. I wouldn't want to lose any history.
Meg, did I see your hand?
I just want to say that going around the cenotaph, I don't think that's a good idea. I would really like that one off the table.
So that's option one.
That's option one. I just don't think. I think technically it would be quite a challenge because those are 1 foot squares and they're flat, and you've got a round surface. And as well as what Catherine said.
I'm not sure how the Legion would feel about it.
So can I just pull? Is there anybody that liked option one? Okay, so we seem there's consensus on option one is not preferred at all. Meg?
And my second thing is I would prefer that we have the plaque, I would have it closer to the mosaic, unless it's actually part of, for example, the young people and, so then it would become part of a larger thing. I would rather see it closer to the existing mosaic as part of the explanation of why that gap in the mosaic is there.
Angela.
I have a question about where it's being stored right now, and is it an issue to just keep it stored for a little longer so we can have more discussion about this?
We couldn't do the work right now because it's winter.
Oh, no, I know that, but is there a rush to get it figured out right now?
Well, we've been talking about it for 2 years.
Right.
So it's kind of there's kind of a bit of burning, brains have been burning a little.
Let's hear from staff on it.
It's sitting in the corner of the operations yard.
I'd
so
like to take a look at it.
It's not, it's probably not
In a safe place?
in a safe place.
Okay.
And Elaine, timelines? Can you address that?
I can address timelines.
Oh.
I've got the mosaicists that we have on standby to do the remediation work for the wings, or what I'm referring to as the wings. He's coming out in March to look at any deterioration that has happened in the past year, and he's working on scheduling some work for June, July, August. And so I said that I'm happy to work with him in any of the summer months, and that just let us know how that fits into his work schedule.
Okay, so if
So
the
my
outcome
hope
of this was just discussion, no motion,
Yeah.
no recommendation, we're not bumping up against critical time.
No, but it does. Like
nice to get it done.
he needs to quote
Okay,
on
yep.
the restoration of the existing pieces, because the plan was for him to do all of the work, the wings, as well as what the committee had previously directed, 6 to 8 pieces of the removed, salvaged portion. And so he was going to do all that work at the same time.
So
Okay.
there is some urgency.
We need to get there.
Peter next.
And
then
then if I
Sydney.
can ask this question, you said you were really integrally involved in this build of this park. What would you like to see done with it? Because and I don't know if that's a staff hat or you.
Yeah,
Well, especially
Totally
with this
I think
feedback,
that's a really great question.
Because I honestly think you probably have the better part.
Yeah, I think it is a treasured part of our community, and I would not want to see it sort of buried in the park. Like, I have thought about this, and you know, should we put it as a little play feature in the playground, or should we have it as a, maybe lining a garden bed, or, you know, but to me, it feels like having it on Cleveland is a great idea. I hear what Meg said about the, maybe not wanting to incorporate it as part of the cenotaph. Personally, like, I'd like that color, but it is, I don't know how the feasibility would work. It does seem impossible. So personally, I would like to see it incorporated like as a border on the streetscape of Cleveland, to tie the two ends of the park together.
Yes, Peter.
Would there be objection if it was broken into little pieces so it was like a cool, it was almost, you know, where you spread ashes, you put things across down, so you embedded it into you know, the benches, or on Cleveland or wherever you want, like, so it's been used.
So it's broken up into
it's like, it's open, people are like, oh, what are these
There's,
really cool, colourful things around town? And then you have the plaque, and then and then it's simple, it's not too
There's
costly.
a floor of a church in Italy that is half made up of Roman mosaic
I love it.
floors,
That's
along
my
with,
hope.
as well as Renaissance marbles. It's pretty wild, but
Sydney, you're next. Devin?
I would just, the operations lens and the maintenance lens just needs to be considered in terms of, in terms of the overall budget.
That's what I was saying, if you embed it in concrete, as in you have little pieces, then there's zero maintenance, there's no zero slippage because you've got small amounts of it sitting on it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm talking about like
I missed
you do
it.
squares
Sorry,
and then they cast just a piece of concrete and you drop colours in, and then you could actually make slabs and you could put them anywhere you want. And you could actually write in the concrete story, and then there's no cost, there's no maintenance because concrete doesn't deteriorate. Your lifespan of that's probably 20 to 100 years based on German fortifications in Jersey. So it's like massive, long,
Different quality.
it's low, it's simple.
I was going to say, these were set in concrete.
Yeah, but they were walked on and.
yeah.
Sydney?
I guess this question for Elaine, what is your feelings on lining Second Avenue versus Cleveland? And why you lean more towards Cleveland than Second? Because just to go to what Meg's point, feelings are about keeping them close together, and I'm just curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so where on Second? Let's have a look.
From there to your office?
Maybe I'm not imagining it correctly, but does the concrete semicircle connect in with the sidewalk path, or is there another, so to say, perpendicular sidewalk that leads to the actual streetscape?
So like, does the mosaic actually reach the sidewalk?
Yeah, I think
Because it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
No.
Okay.
Because
it's actually
originally
concrete.
it was never designed. It was never meant to be walked on when you first put it down.
It was actually.
Well, but not part of a public.
Well, because there was water lines or whatever in
Mhm.
between where we ended that and the sidewalk, so we weren't allowed to.
Yeah, people were allowed to, but
Connected.
it wasn't part of a path.
So it's lining the
It was at the path was added
streetscape,
later.
similar to what you're proposing on Cleveland.
Yeah,
Well,
so do you mean?
It was originally grass all around it.
Yeah,
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 It-
all around it.
yeah.
And in the center.
So people could walk on it, but it wasn't a public walkway.
Correct.
I've seen like, sorry to press this point, like I've seen before where, you know, bike racks, you make them out of concrete again, you embed mosaic in it and you put it right next to where it is, and then now you've got bike racks and you've got the use of the art and then you've got a story.
Sydney?
Yeah, I guess my question is, because you're proposing it as going horizontally or parallel to Cleveland Avenue. I'm just saying, take that idea and put it on Second, where we see the sidewalk. And
On the two
So
edges?
it's leading into
Yes.
the,
I'm
Yeah.
just asking in terms of the
Yeah,
other.
no, I think that's an interesting point, and I think it would require a site visit across the street to look at how that might work. So two things come to mind. One is, maybe like if it would work, I don't know, at the where the mosaic ends. So between there, almost an extension of the circle. Otherwise, potentially parallel to the road. Just going back, I won't say it again, but personally, I like the idea of the balance of connecting. Like, Cleveland is our busier street. It's like, that's my own personal thought. So that's, I think, something that would be great to hear from this committee, and I know Meg likes the idea of keeping it together, so maybe what are some other thoughts? But that is a good idea, maybe, yeah, the streetscape on second.
Okay, yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got Catherine, then Jackie, and then Angela.
So I'm pretty open to what we decide. I would like it flat. I would like them seen for sure. I don't want them to be destroyed. But I would like to see what we've got, which I could go into the yard and photograph, or if that's not allowed, the staff, if we could see photos of the pieces. And we were talking about 6 to 8. Okay, so if there are 15 pieces, what are the best 8, or what condition are the crappy ones in, and stuff like that. Because I don't know what we're looking at. I mean, I saw that beautiful. There was a red-winged blackbird in one of them, and that's stunning. And so I'd love to just see. And I remember some of them from before it was taken apart.
That shouldn't be too difficult to arrange.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's totally fine. I
then we can make a choice.
Yeah, I took about 30 pictures or something when it was removed, so I can upload those to an extranet site and provide the link to Devon.
That'd be awesome.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Great.
Because just so that we can say, we like 1, 5, 7, 8, 12, and the other ones don't look like they're salvageable, and then we can say, oh, what if we made a mini rainbow, or if we did this or that, then we know how much we have to play with.
Jackie?
So, sticking with this same picture, what I was suggesting, there's that pathway that connects the two, right? That comes out the top of the circle, the semicircle, and goes all the way to Cleveland, right? So you have the major pieces on Cleveland on either side of that walkway, and then like your 6 to 8, and then all the other bits and pieces can be scattered along to this pathway to then connect it to this side. I don't know what that does to grass maintenance.
Operationally that's going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
There's irrigation and power that runs to service the light standards.
Oh, right, okay.
On either side,
Yeah.
and in the spirit of a successful project,
Fair.
I don't necessarily see it as that.
Okay.
Angela?
But I was just going to say, you can keep your Cleveland side, but on to Sydney's point is whatever's left over can go on either side of that.
Angela?
I'm just gonna throw one more idea in here, because we've got to keep talking about it. So I like the idea, I kind of am with Meg about keeping the original pieces close to the original mosaic. Maybe some of the pieces that are broken and so on can somehow become part of another mosaic that we could organize at some point soonish, that could go on the Cleveland side of things. And then that can connect the two. So, so that we still keep the integrity of keeping the original, pretty decently still in shape pieces with the original mosaic, the ones that have kind of broken apart, not working with, or working so well, can go and become somehow part of another mosaic project that we could conceive of, and that might be a nice way to attach the two. Then maybe everyone's happy. Just a thought. Because I do love the idea of connecting them as well. I think that's great.
I'm going to take one more thought from Amy, and that will have meant that we've heard from everybody on this, and then I want to get to a motion so that we can give some direction to Devon and Elaine. Go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say that there's so many different ways to connect the two sides, not just envisioning it as being flat on the ground, but something that I've seen, and I don't know if it's feasible with these, but is concrete benches or tables. And if those could be incorporated into like the reading areas, then that might be really nice, because then they're really right from where they were, and now they're just elevated up a little bit. And that could be scattered throughout the park too.
Have you got a motion?
Yeah, no, I've got a motion, an idea for a motion.
Okay,
Can I suggest something?
Go.
Catherine is the expert on this in the thing. Elaine has all the information background. Can I somehow propose a motion that these two work together and just do it?
Absolutely.
And then just go ahead, as in
we'll take our ideas.
Just create it, and then you come up with us and go, do you like this? And we go, yes, and then that way it's
Because people have been saying things,
and I've
been kind of going logistically.
So what I'm hearing is a motion along the lines of recommendation of the committee is that Catherine Atkinson and Elaine Naisby sit down together, discuss, plan further, and
my pleasure.
That a subcommittee of Catherine Atkinson
A subcommittee of
is
two.
elected or nominated to work with staff on
Yeah.
the Stan Clarke Park.
Totally good with that, because I'm totally open to what we can do with the pieces. I just want to know what the pieces are and what
Absolutely.
state they're in.
So you want to put a timeline on, like you come back to us into a meeting? No, next meeting or the meeting after?
I would want it to be the next meeting. This is possibly the busiest month of my life, but
I'm just asking.
yeah, no, I'm happy to meet up a couple of times, and I was kind of, but I'd be more dependent on you with the notes for the details of what everybody was saying.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. If we, this was sort of like trying to engage and get the feedback at this early stage. So yeah, we'll drill down a bit more and come back with something a bit more detailed with the budget.
Meg, is that something that might interest you too, or you just, I was wondering?
What I wanted to throw on the table is that plaque, and how does this plaque incorporate with the pieces? Because that to me is an integral part.
We can make that part of it.
You know I like words.
Okay, so I'm told we don't need a motion for a subcommittee, but is there a...
Yes, I would like to be part of it too.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Meg would
That's
like to be
fine.
part of it too.
Elaine and I will
She was at
we'll
there at
work
the
with,
beginning.
Yes.
So no motion required.
there's no money.
And I have
Okay.
some books and I
There's
can
no
bring, yeah, there's no money.
Elaine?
You're not assigning money.
Oh, okay.
You're not assigning money.
What you say?
To confirm the plaque, the intention is to acknowledge, like to explain what's happened and why a piece has been repurposed. Okay.
Sure, and I'd like it to try and do it for the next meeting, just so that we can move on with it.
Yeah.
Great. Anything
Thank
else? We can move on from this?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
I'll give you spin the tape.
Okay, so our next item is number 2, the Plaza at Junction Park. Public art plan. Our friends from Solterra are seeking some feedback.
Thanks for waiting.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question? Devin, was this the piece that was brought to the ADP?
Yes,
looks
yes
very
it is,
good.
yes.
Yeah, okay. It looked really familiar, so that's all I wanted.
Davis, are you joining us or are you just gonna hang out back there? Okay, great. So with us is Kyle Labow, have I pronounced that right?
Kyle Labow.
From Solterra, and Mike Bosa, also with Solterra. Welcome.
Kyle's with DK. Yeah, I'm from Durante Creative Landscape Architects.
Perfect.
Jane Durante is the public art consultant on this project, and I'm the one that helps move things along, and I work on these art plans and also kind of help facilitate and guide the public art process as the public art consultant.
Take it away.
Okay, so I think first I'll kind of preface this by saying this is a process that we are going with that is pretty typical of public art projects in Lower Mainland, Vancouver, Burnaby, and Richmond. And I guess the brief idea of it is that there's a selection panel that's put together, and they nominate artists to be considered to be shortlisted for the project, and through consensus voting process, 3 artists are selected to participate and develop a concept, which has been presented to the panel, and the panel selects 1 artist to proceed. So that's kind of it as a brief overview, but I think we'll go and flip through this art plan that we've put together, just to help familiarize everyone with how the process is. And I guess one of the important takeaways from this meeting for us is getting one of you to participate with the project as being a panel member. And so I guess that once we go through this art plan, we'll kind of put that to you all, and I'm not sure if someone just raises their hand or if people fight over it, or maybe you say, no, we don't want that person. Who knows? So, but we'll get there. Okay. So I guess flipping over. So first, the project team and statistics. It's just kind of quick at a glance overview of some of the key critical information. So the project owner is Solterra Group, public art consultant is Jane Durante, as well as myself. The architect is AK Architecture and Design, Andreas Kaminski, and Luke Tyson, and Tom Barrett is the landscape architect. The name of the project is kind of tentative right now, is my understanding. It's the Plaza at Junction Park, kind of helps everyone get a quick idea of where it is in the overall context. And so there are 3 structures on site. It's mixed-use mid-rise development, being done in 2 installations. First building is 6 stories, the second building is 8 stories, and the third building is 4 stories. And the total public art allocation is $107,192. And so with that allocation, which I'll get into a bit later on, that's basically the entire funds that are being put towards the art, and that includes payment of external panel members, as well as payment of the artists who developed their concepps, and then whatever's kind of left over from that is the artist that's selected their funds that they really have to work with. Then I'll break that down a bit later on. The process that we're going through is an invitational competition, which I briefly outlined a minute ago, and we'll get into in depth more. Public art schedule, this is kind of tentative, but we want the artist selected, say April 2019. We find sometimes this stuff can change a little bit depending on people's schedules. Sometimes it's difficult getting everyone together, but we're open for April 2019. And the installation would be at the building's occupancy, tentatively saying 2021. That's subject to change. Project overview and context and location. I suspect I don't need to get too much into context.
Yeah, I would probably, I think if I could offer, the committee's probably interested in seeing the facade of the building, your photos, and then you've gone through your process. So I think after that we could probably launch into who from the committee would like to represent.
Sure. Yeah, I guess maybe first I'll highlight that the site is along, well, it's bounded by Cleveland Avenue, Main Street, Loggers Lane, and Vancouver Street, right across to Junction Park, where a new plaza is being proposed. We'd like to acknowledge that this project's an unceded First Nations land for the Squamish people, and I think it's interesting to note that Squamish means mother of the wind and people of the sacred water. We want to acknowledge the relevance of First Nations people to this area, and we are interested in there being some representation from First Nations and Squamish people or Coast Salish peoples, whether it be on a panel or as artists. That's something we're really open to, and we think this is a good opportunity for potential reconciliation. I guess we're not at the architecture. Do you want to give a...
I think the architecture, we've already had a meeting previously,
yes.
So we won't waste time on the building.
Yeah.
I think we'll just get to your good stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Guess maybe we'll kind of look at the opportunities. I think I'll jump around and first kind of point out some of the locations of where...
I think that's a good.
Yeah, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah.
So the art will be located along Loggers Lane, faces this chief, so we think that's a good opportunity, that it's an area where people will naturally be drawn to, with good views up to the mountain. But also this is an area that the city, or the district rather, specifically had interest in us enhancing for the project, and we think for public art would be a really good opportunity to enhance this area and help draw more people out. And kind of, I think it's a good opportunity for it to kind of speak to the context of the area, looking out towards the chief.
May I offer something?
Sure.
On the page on the presentation, the areas denoted by the red boxes are the areas of opportunity for public art in which they will be going through this process.
Yes, and so I guess with that, there's potential for it to be located on the facade of the building. That's kind of what we primarily have in mind, and that could be at the ground level or it could be up on the second level. One thing important worth noting is that we'd be looking at the art being only on facades that aren't over the commercial portion of the building, just so that it doesn't distract from, I guess, commercial uses of this, and that they're not fighting over for attention, I guess, let's say. Yeah, and so there's opportunity for it to be on 2 of the buildings. So there's quite a large area that could be looked at. We kind of leave it to the artists to kind of propose how they feel best to treat that. Do you have a question?
Sorry, so the spaces are walls, basically?
Yes.
Concrete walls?
The material, I think...
They're going to be platted.
Platted, yeah.
We're going through the process. Obviously, we're still in the design phase, but behind the walls is a parquet.
Oh, okay.
So
Thanks.
the screening is there to screen the parquet, so it won't be concrete. There'll be some kind of metal. The architect hasn't finalized that. And then the artist will attach to it.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, the quicker we go through the process, it also helps us modify if we need to, so they can accept the art or maybe the color or something that, right? So the quicker process is better for us because then it'll end up fitting better at the end of the day.
Yeah, we like the opportunity for some collaboration, I guess, and the sooner artist is involved, usually the better, and helps the process go through pretty smooth. Yeah, so that's kind of the gist of where it is. It's along Loggers Lane, quite a large area and decent amount of opportunity. They could have it, I guess in theory, span both of those portions of the building highlighted in the red, or it could be localized in different areas and scattered around. We typically don't like to be too prescriptive to the artist. We like this to be an opportunity for the artist to, I guess, have fun with it, kind of express who they are and where they're from, and also, at the end of the day, we're not the artists, and we don't want to step in on anyone's feet. So we like to leave that kind of open to the artists. And we do have some things that we do like to, I guess, put out there of things that for them to consider, which I guess I can run through this list of some of the things we look for. And these are kind of just general things. It's not about necessarily the exact idea of what the art is, but so it's on page 8. You see in the bottom left-hand corner. There's a bullet list. So one would be the artwork reflects professional practice, demonstrates excellence, quality, and innovation, a sense of impact, memorability, and landmark potential. We'd like it to contribute to Squamish's character, provides opportunity for engagement and or a sense of discovery for a community or people passing through the area. We like a relationship to the site and context. We like artists to consider seasonal and or day and night cycles. Think of like how it looks at night or during the day, like is it lit? Does it relate to the weather in some way? We like to leave that open to the artist. It's positioned to provide maximum experience for pedestrians so they can kind of see it and relate to it. Complements the pedestrian environment. Make sure that it's designed for outdoor conditions, safety, durability, and resistance to vandalism. So I guess depending on where they locate it, that may be more or less important. If it's on the ground level, it would be, I guess, more in reach with people. Whereas if it's up on the second level, maybe that's a bit less of a concern.
You'd be surprised how.
Yeah, some people
get to.
Yes.
So I think that those are all excellent points that were probably discussed and considered at ADP. If there's any direct questions, we could probably start to discuss who would like to potentially sit on, who would like to sit on this. Are we calling it an advisory panel? We're calling it a
selection panel.
Selection panel, there we go.
What are the parameters of that panel?
Catherine?
I just wanted to know, so you're hoping to have someone in April. Is the call out now?
The call isn't out now. Basically, the way we propose, or the way this process is the first step is getting a selection panel together.
Okay.
And from there, the selection panel proposes 3 to 5 artists each to be considered. And so that kind of leaves it open so that, like, especially the panel and community members, they're familiar with the artists in this area, which we want artists from Squamish to be involved in the project. It's nice to have community members give back to the community. So
that's an important point. It's very important to us that the artist is from Squamish.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
What's the expectation of the panel members? What's the commitment?
We're basically committed to 2 meetings, and also generating their shortlist, their own artists that they'd like to see involved in the project. So first, the panel members would send their 3 to 5 artists to the public art consultants to add to a list in advance of the first meeting. And at the first meeting, we would discuss all those long-listed artists, and through discussion and deliberation, the selection panel would select 3 artists to develop concepts. From there, we would contact the artists that were shortlisted, and usually they're interested. And we typically have a few backups in place just in case an artist isn't available or if they're not interested. And then from there, we give the artists usually about 6 weeks to develop a concept, and then they present their concepts to the selection panel, and through a consensus voting process, the selection panel selects one artist to proceed with their art for the project.
Okay, great. Devin, is your hand still up, or?
With regards to being on the traditional territory of Squamish Nation, I think our path in Truth and Reconciliation is fairly is in an emerging state, I would suggest that it would be problematic for it to be, if it were a First Nation artist outside of the Squamish Nation realm, that would be likely problematic.
Yeah, and that's something that we want first and foremost, I guess, either community members of Squamish, or they should be from the Squamish Nation, with preference being in living in district of Squamish or working in. But I think with the being the Squamish people as a whole, I think we can have some a little bit more flexibility there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. Peter and then Sydney.
And thanks for the presentation. So I have an interest in this because I'm on the BIA, so that's been my personal one, but I'd like to hear from you guys. What's your ideal candidate? What's the makeup of that selection committee already? Do you already have people, and is there a missing gap in the skill set you're looking for? Or do you want somebody who's been here?
So if we jump to page 10, so we don't have the entire panel together, but we have a few of the individuals. So the panel is ultimately comprised of 5 individuals.
Oh, cool.
Like to keep an odd number so that if there's, we'd like to avoid
yes,
ties.
absolutely.
Essentially.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Governance 101.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the first representative would be Mike Mosa. He's the owner representative at Solterra. Second would be the project architect, it's Andreas Kaminski. Third would be the Squamish Public Art Select Committee representative, so one of you. The fourth would be Squamish Arts Council representative, who we still need to contact.
You, thankfully, are in the midst of the executive director of the Squamish Arts Council is in attendance tonight, and I suspect their process would be, correct me if I'm wrong, that they would discuss it at their next board meeting and then would nominate someone from the board to participate if that process were.
That would be great for us.
Yeah.
So we would just leave you with the package and the PowerPoint.
That'd be great.
That's perfect.
So I think
we're going to get this done in April for sure.
2 for the price of 1.
I think that one of the tasks in your task list just got a tick beside it. Peter,
So my
follow up?
second question to determine that ideal candidate is this a given already that the art is along the Truth and Reconciliation and First Nations sort of ilk, or is that just a suggestion by those? I mean,
Let me preface. I only made that comment. I know that that's not necessarily the intent, and you're open to all art proposals.
Yes, the artist will, there's no preconceived idea. Some of the public art that are on our buildings are, you know, nothing that we would have ever imagined.
I wasn't too sure whether your presentation to council, when this came across to them, that it was like, oh yeah, we really, and that was one of your pieces, and so therefore if that's been a presentation in the past, then no, we wouldn't want to turn that around.
The only presentation was that, that I put that the artist is from Squamish.
Cool. Yeah, and I think
I wanted to stay here.
Yeah.
The Lawrence, support the local community.
And I think with that, it's more so that we encourage, at least if like some First Nations artists put forward. We're not looking for it to be one or the other, but we like to have options, and it's a good opportunity to.
Yeah. The community representative is going to be from First Nations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think
fits in that.
Yeah. That's
good to
that involvement's coming in, so they will be able to provide artists, and after that.
Because that skill set's covered.
Yeah. And I would say the community representative, that basically our first thought of approaching that would be contacting someone from the Squamish Nation and seeing if they have someone that they would recommend. And I think I assume that they would like to participate, but who knows, if no one's interested, then I think we would kind of look for
I've actually
options
had a couple of conversations the last couple of weeks along this topic with me. I was going to actually bring this round to the round table, so I can bring that to later. But
yeah, please hold on to that. Sydney?
Great to hear, because that was my question about if the nation were to be engaged, just in case Indigenous proposals come forward, that you have diverse representation in the treaty. So that's really awesome to hear. And then second, to the committee, I will offer up my name for volunteering, but I won't fight anyone over it. So just put that on the table.
Okay, great. Jackie?
So the title on the front page says the Plaza Junction Park. Is the Plaza artwork a whole separate project, or are you just focusing on the two pieces facing Loggers Lane with this project?
The title of the development itself is tentatively called the Plaza Junction Park, so the art isn't proposed to be in the plaza, or it doesn't have anything to do with that. That's just, I guess, the working title of the project.
So with this project, you're only focusing on those two pieces facing the facade?
Yes.
And sometime down in the future, you'll consider the other end that sort of butts up against the...
Yeah, the plaza is empty in its own, so that's something that we fund. None of the funds that we set aside for public art is going to be, none of this money is being used for anything that's in the plaza.
Okay.
If we choose to do something in the plaza, that's separate.
That's separate. And part two is there a package for the artist developed, or is that the committee, one of the tasks of the committee to develop the package that will then, kind of an RFP that will go out to the artists?
Once the artists are shortlisted, we will compile relevant architecture and landscape drawings, and we also typically send terms of reference, kind of listing some of the things that I've kind of talked about as far as concern of vandalism and all that stuff. So we do compile a package and distribute that to artists when we're first contacting them to see if they're interested in.
Sorry, just so then to understand the role of the committee is then to vet the art and bring to the table artists that would participate in the competition?
Yeah, I guess the ultimate role of the panel is to put forward the artist names and select the artist moving forward. And the intention is for it to be a fairly transparent and open process that considers the community at large and also the developer's interest. We tried, or the purpose of it, or basically we want like a balanced process, and that's kind of the main point of it. We don't want any controversies or And we want the community to be happy ultimately as well as the district.
And I too will put my name forward,
Okay, so
but I
you're
won't
interested.
fight anybody on it
Yeah,
either.
okay. I have Meg up next, but Devin, you've got a point?
I just wanted to offer up as well that this is, that Solterra has come to the table in terms of initiating this process voluntarily, and that this is the first process of its kind to come to public art.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Very
really.
much appreciated.
And in 4 years, we've been going for 4 years, so thank you.
Yeah, this is a good precedent.
Yeah.
Meg?
But really, the plaza is actually on Main Street. Is that public ownership or is that your ownership? What's the deal?
The plaza is public ownership, but has nothing to do with what we're talking about today.
I understood that, but I was just interested in the
yeah,
ownership,
I
Main
think-
Street, the road and
Yeah,
stuff.
I think the background for the name is, it used to be a construction building and they weren't referred to it as Pac West.
Okay.
And it was very awkward at council when we talked about
Yep.
drywall company. So they asked that I would name it. So we thought, well, there's a plaza at Junction Park, so that's what we named it. And that was the extent of that. So the name will most likely be changing with more thought about the end product. So this is really for anyone that, Plaza at Junction Park, they know exactly where the plaza is at Junction Park, and that's where the building is. So it's kind of misleading, but Main Street is city realm. We will improve it.
Yeah, but it is actually city.
City property, managed by the city, owned by the city. We will just improve the plaza, and it may not just be a plaza, so it's whatever the city wants us to make of it.
Thank you.
Okay, Peter, did I see an indication you want? Do you have another thought?
I've got loads of thoughts as always.
They just
I don't know if you want to get me on that one, John. But I was just wondering what the process is, and then yes, I would. Yeah, is there a fight or something we do? Is that what? No. I didn't need to go there, like there's no fight. I was like, well,
we have boxing gloves in the back.
That's what I was
Well, so I'm hearing interest from Peter, from Sydney, and Jackie on being on the panel.
I have one question actually.
Yes.
Sydney, are you on the board of the Arts Council?
You were hoping for a fight, right?
No, because well, if Sydney was on the board, then she still wants to be on it, then there's not a fight. And it was just like, and then you're on ADP already, so this is almost, you've seen this, done that, so you've already had an input in it. So I was like, great, you've already got your bit.
Well,
and then,
are you making
so
a pitch
my-
for you?
That's
what I'm hearing.
I will say this.
No,
so
my
I
only
see-
pitch on the ADP was to bring it to the guard committee.
So my only thoughts of this is that because the Squamish Arts Council is there, if Squamish Arts Council wasn't there, then I would vote there or there. My remit from being on the BIA is to bring people downtown, so this fits under the remit of BIA and me sitting on public arts, so I can do two jobs at once. But my problem is that Sydney has a lot more experience with artists and arts, although I have a couple of connections in First Nations which I've just come across. But anyway, so I also don't want to fight, but then I might be able to. No,
Where's the marshal?
And so that's just my view, but I can leave the room.
Okay, well, let me just check in. Angela, does it interest you?
Oh, it's interesting, but I've got too much.
Okay, very
That
good.
was the third thing. It was only 2 meetings.
3.
Yes, 2 meetings.
In between, what was the timeline on zone?
Let's see.
So as well, because if
Interesting.
the dates clash as well, there's no point any of us putting a name forward if you've got meetings on that date or something like that. So if you want to-
Nothing is set for
I already
dates.
have an
Yeah,
idea.
nothing is set for dates. I'd say the goal is for the artist to be selected and the panel to be, I guess, finished within 6 months. But it does kind of depend on schedules. That is, I will say, like, we do have a schedule in this package, but it is kind of tentative, and I find often it kind of shifts, and sometimes it's difficult getting artists and community members and panelists in the same room at the same time.
Meg, are you interested in being on the panel? Okay, so we have 3 people that are interested. Committee, we need to narrow that down to 1. And we get to decide how we're going to do that. I heard a pretty good pitch from Peter.
Just like, that's
I like the BIA connection. Sydney, 30 seconds.
I like it. It's like, and I've been joking this.
Yeah, I think you'd be a great candidate, Peter. Yeah.
Because I think you're a great candidate as well. And you talk too.
I do want to put the opinion down that whichever committee member is selected, to put a real onus and sense of responsibility on that committee member to really commit themselves to learning about redress and truth and reconciliation and what that means, not only from a Western standpoint and as a Squamish citizen standpoint, but from the nation and as an Indigenous individual who has heritage in this unceded territory. So I just want that to be a consideration from this committee, because if this artwork were to come through to speak to that theme, I think that that's important to understand.
Yes. Jackie, any thoughts on what makes you the person for this panel?
Well, my art, work in the arts community and working in selecting public art, and thoughts and working with First Nation people across Canada. So that's it.
Okay, so the three of you have heard your three pitches.
So the three that's left.
You all wish to have your name stand, or do any of you wish to now bow out thinking someone else is going to do a better job on this panel than you?
I don't think it's a better or worse job. It's
Well,
just different connections.
Are you all still in?
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
I had a 2-hour conversation with some person just about that, and it's somebody actually who's in the community who's actually just travelled around the world to other First Nations and do you know the Quest University talk that happened? The keynote speaker that was there. So anyway, I just felt, just as soon as you said that, I was like, cool. But anyway, that's my last pitch. Sorry,
okay.
That's unfair.
Jackie. Okay, I love it that you've done that, because you're our ADP representative. We've got a good job for you on the side.
That's fine.
Thank you. So, Sydney?
I'm personally fine with Peter if you want to take this one.
Sure.
You feel strongly about it.
No, don't feel strong. Oh no, it does sound like
I assume that the artist connections and stuff will be covered through the Arts Council representative? Is that a fair?
That's a fair statement, for sure.
Because one of the things you want is the connections, maximum number of artists, right?
That's
in
my
the community.
Devin, you've got a thought.
I was gonna offer if someone had a quarter.
That's a fair deal. I would do that. I think that's fair.
Arm wrestling?
Yeah.
I think a quarter is
Look at
perfect.
those guns.
Yeah.
What's your
I think Peter makes sense because he's got connections with the BIA, you know, and we've already got the Arts Council. Yeah, and it's not that I've got anything against people. I don't think he's ever seen either side of me, but.
We want to make sure that
That's why I
this
see
person
it like,
is
makes total sense.
representing this group.
Yeah.
For sure,
so-
yeah.
That's
I
who
think we
we're
can trust
requesting.
Peter to represent
So,
this group. I think we can
with
trust
all due respect to Sydney and her skills, abilities, and knowledge, I think I might be hearing around the table that we have a consensus that Peter is the person we would like to have on the panel. Sydney, does that fit well with you?
There you go.
Great. I'll just check in one more time. We have a consensus. Peter is our appointee to the panel. Jackie?
Oh, I'm just saying yay.
Yes, okay. Good. And then
I second that motion.
Not seeing any objection, I think we are appointing Peter to the panel. We wish him luck.
Thanks.
Report back.
We will make sure Peter's contact information is passed along to you.
Perfect. Any final thoughts?
Just so Solterra's involvement going forward is we're just another person on the panel. Everything going forward is through Peter. We're really going to make sure that we don't find anything that's on the building is offensive to us, but we really, it's an art, we're not artists, right?
Great.
So it is whatever it will be.
And I think that's maybe a good opportunity for me to, further express Jane and my role as a public art consultants is that we're basically here to guide and facilitate the public art process from initial stages through to completion. So we're kind of usually the main point of contact. between different parties for this. Does anyone have any questions?
No, good.
Can we put names forward to our representative of artists? Just
Well, that'd be great. I mean, I think that would be what already asked for.
And in terms of the materials, the talent of the artists, can they be in wide genres? It's not, say, just murals. You're looking for more than that.
I think it could be wide, but I think maybe it's a difficult thing in that like we don't want to be too prescriptive.
Yeah.
But I guess ultimately we are looking at the art being in the facade in some capacity.
Would you,
built into the facade.
to bring into that, would you be able to give me an agenda for that first meeting to understand what the goals and outcomes would be from that? So then I would be able to elicit some sort of guidelines to who the artist might be.
So are you asking for a rough outline of what the agenda would look like now, or to pass it on?
Yeah, the process, like if I understand the 2 or 3 meetings and the agenda.
Yeah. So basically there are 2 meetings.
Not now.
Kyle, yeah, I was just gonna say, can we take that offline so that
Sure.
we can
Yeah,
press
we can
on
talk.
with
From our perspective, the art has to be in those 2 locations.
Yeah.
It can be painted on, it can be bolted on, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Our 2 in Burnaby, one is a sculpture of a coyote
Yeah.
upside down mountain,
Yeah.
and the other one's stained glass. Completely
Cool.
different.
What are the locations?
They're both quite close
Would
to each other.
Would they be on your website?
Just got installed, so I don't know if the final pictures are in.
I don't think the final pictures are in, but
Can you get the pictures?
Well,
yeah, sure. We could, if you would
I'd
like
love
some
to,
examples
yeah.
of some previous.
Sure.
Those are different. Those are. There was no rules.
For sure.
It was anything. This one is very specific, but again, I don't think
pretty
we're
broad.
suggesting anything's.
Yeah.
The money's there.
Yeah.
However you want to use it is up to you. You have to get it and you have to fix it to the building.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. That's
So we don't ask for receipts or how much it costs to build it. That's the money, and if it's the right one that's chosen, then that's.
Yeah, it's an enormous canvas. So.
Great. Thank you,
Thank you.
all 3 of you, Davis, Kyle, and Mike. Thank you for being here, and also thank you for this opportunity of bringing it to this committee.
Yeah.
Because really what you're doing, I think, is one of the key things of what this committee was designed to do, and it's exciting that it's being done in this way for the
Good
first time.
precedent. You're the first.
We look forward to seeing the final product.
Yeah. We're all very excited about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is an update on advisory design panel. Jackie, have you got any thoughts for us?
Can I just interject for 1 second?
Yes.
I wanted a friendly reminder that we were aiming for a hard stop at 8 o'clock.
Yes. So, concise
I
would
will
be
be.
super
8
good.
o'clock. 6
There's a
minutes.
bunch of extras.
It's good to have goals.
You're gonna need them.
Go ahead, Jackie.
So, the ADP group did not meet this past February.
Oh, that should make
because
it nice
there-
and quick.
Because there was apparently no proposals put forward.
Okay.
However, the previous meeting, there was a competition that was put forward by staff. My only thought on that, in choosing and grouping, there was best commercial development, best mixed, and best residential. There was going to be no ceremony attached to it, and just certificates handed out. So I suggested to staff that going forward, or even on this one, they can reconsider that and make it a more public type event, so that then you can raise the bar and people can then know that there's a competition and that they can rise to new standards of, these are, some of what we were judging them on was a public art perspective, like what does this building look like in the rest of the community, and how does it fit, not just functionality. So they're considering that.
Great. Thank you.
The next meeting is next week, so.
Very good. So you'll have a little bit more for us next month.
Yeah.
So the next item, major project. So this is the Truth and Reconciliation project that we've invested some great discussion into in the last couple of months. I had a good discussion with the mayor about this. And there are some concerns with where we're at and where we're going. And the big concern is the way we're approaching this really is not informed by what we've learned through the Truth and Reconciliation process that we've been through. So,
Locally or generally?
I was gonna say.
well, for the direction we've talked about taking the project
Yeah.
locally really doesn't align with the learnings out of Truth and Reconciliation.
But the learnings locally or the learnings on?
Broadly,
Across
generally.
Canada.
Okay, that's what I want.
So where we're at, and this is born out of discussion between me, Devin, and the mayor, is we're going to put it on hold. And one of the key things that is going to happen in the next couple of weeks is I and other members of council are going to get a full day of, call it training. It's not really training. It's a day of First Nations cultural learning. And out of that, council as a whole is going to get one step closer to really having our heads wrapped around our relationship with First Nations, what it looks like, what it means, and how we function. And we see this project as really key to the relationship between the District of Squamish and the Squamish Nation, and really making Truth and Reconciliation real in our community. And there is a concern at this point that the way we've been approaching the major project is going to be problematic in all of that bigger picture stuff. We don't want that to happen. So what I'm looking for, what is going to happen is we're on hold for the time being. I'm pretty sure we're going to revisit this in next month's agenda when we've been through that very important piece for the new council and get ourselves to where do we go next with Truth and Reconciliation and this project. Quick?
How is it problematic?
In that the worry is if we continue on the path we're on, it's going to cause tension that we're not prepared, that we don't want to get ourselves into.
Okay, I just don't understand what the tension is.
Yeah.
Because we
Well, I don't know that there is tension right now. We want to make sure that we're not getting ourselves into a situation. Yeah.
Should we, if you're going to discuss First Nations relations, also
So I think at this point then, what I'd like is for the committee to let this sit with me, trust that I'm taking us where we need to be to make sure that we have a successful project.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
All
So-
I want to say is, can't we come to the cultural training?
Well,
It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but
it's pre-programmed, it's registration,
absolutely.
and
But the
it's
point is,
finalized.
again, that I think all of us need to engage
Yeah.
in some of that.
Sure, and
So
anything you
you'll
can
bring the
do.
learnings back to us?
Absolutely, yeah, I will bring back a report out of that in our
Inside
next
learning.
meeting. And so next on our agenda is the student project, Howe Sound Secondary School. And Angela, we are shooting for an 8 o'clock finish, and clearly,
Well, there are just some things that we needed to kind of start deciding on now, unfortunately.
May I interject just for one
Yeah.
second? I have been in touch with Henry Verbeek.
Okay.
And he's the graphic design art teacher at Howe Sound.
Okay.
And there has been a project, there's an opportunity to, there's some lift stations going in some district infrastructure, and they would like, and the engineering department, using the public art lens, would like to put some artwork on that. And so I reached out to Henry and said, would your students like to design this?
Right.
He said, yes, I'd love to put it in the curriculum. And so that might be a bit of an easy win if the committee is amenable to it.
But does that squash
Okay,
what you're
I'm totally open to that. I mean, I know I can totally do this in April as well. It's just, there's a bit of a timeline that we discussed back in the January meeting about the possibility of putting it out as a general competition to the local youth. And that I was gonna go potentially with anybody who wanted to come with me and have a talk with the local high school students about public art and trying to drum up some support. I've been in touch with Natalie.
Great, postcard.
She and I cannot meet until after our March break, which starts next week, so early April. But there was just some things, like I did some research on other local districts as well as different public districts around the
Totally, and my intent was not to hijack.
No,
sorry.
no.
It was just to
a nice thing to start with.
Go kids.
Yeah.
what are the critical
but
things?
It might actually buy us some time so that we can set this up more appropriately.
Here,
at
I'll
the
just
next meeting.
pass this around, and this is just something I came up with, and maybe we can look at it and table it for the beginning of the next meeting.
Yeah, at the beginning.
Because like if there's just some things that I came up with that we might want to consider. This is your homework.
I love it.
So
The teacher's sending us home with homework.
Okay. So if you guys could jot down thoughts, you can email them to me too if you want, or whatever. That would be great. If you want to jot down my email, it's angela.walsh19@gmail.com.
This is great. I love it because it means that you've set us up powerfully for April. You can update us out of your meeting with Natalie.
Yeah, if I get a chance to talk, because our March break will end just at the end of March, so I may not get a chance to meet with her until sort of after our first meeting in April. But at least I can bring her some of these ideas. But we need to get this timeline going if we potentially want to meet with the kids in May-ish so that we can get something together for September to start thinking about. Like, I've got a little timeline, you can look at it.
Great, perfect. And that takes us to staff updates.
Awesome. The synopsis really is that having gone through all the numbers, you guys have $125,000 in your provisional fund, in your reserve. That's the outstanding question under staff updates that is carried forwarded from the last meeting. That's that.
Okay, great. So that takes us to number 5. Yep. go
Sorry,
ahead.
quick question. It says 125 in reserve, but it says budget update and reserve fund. Are they two separate things?
Well, you haven't spent any money in 2019, so there's no budget to update.
Okay,
Same as last month.
okay. Sorry, I wasn't here last month, so.
Right, of course. Then let's move on. Council, status of recommendations to council. There's no update there. There's no referrals from council. Can we make the roundtable discussion super fast? Catherine, go.
I don't know if you've seen the announcement. This might be particularly interesting for Angela because there's a scholarship that's just been announced.
I just
named
saw that.
Chili Tom.
Yeah.
And
I just saw that.
the chief did a story today, so there'll
Yes.
be more details in
Okay.
that. So
Yeah.
hopefully our kids can look at that.
That was
Yeah.
very exciting.
Anybody else? Good. Peter?
Only that I went to a really interesting, really good, about 2-hour conversation with somebody in First Nations, which came out of the TEDx thing, and I could maybe update next time when we've got more time and or talk to you about it, which will probably segue into what the council is doing,
Perfect.
Yeah, that might
going,
be
and it would also help in potentially this project here. And then,
Okay.
who
We
knows?
can pick that up next month.
Yeah.
Great.
Angela, how about you and I have a chat and about the student thing, and then
Yeah, for sure. I want to hear about it. That sounds awesome.
Motion to terminate. Moved by Meg Fellow, seconded by Catherine Atkinson. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much.